He had traded his Byaroshi outfit for more proper clothing, and he did indeed much resemble Jyakuo. The similarity was so striking that it made Maomao hope the populace who had so revered Shikyo's father might support the son as well. After all, it was all too common for people to make judgments on appearances rather than character. I do have to wonder why the change of heart. Maomao didn't pretend to understand it. She was just an apothecary. No doubt there had been much discussion between Shikyo and Jinshi. There was a new piece of furniture in the medical office, a large couch. From what Maomao heard, the freak strategist had been a regular visitor while she was missing. He had brought it with him and it had stayed. How did they ever get around him? The quack doctor must have entertained the strategist the whole time Maomao was away. The quack's interpersonal skills, Maomao reflected, must be among the most potent in all of Li. The only other person she could think of who could talk down that freak was her father, Liu Men. "Oh, excuse me, but could you grab that stick for me?" "My back is itchy," called Chu, who was lying on the couch. Her torso had been freed from its bandages, as had her right hand and arm. However, her elbow could only bend about half as far as it had before. Her hand and fingers moved only the slightest bit. Her arm hadn't fallen off, though. The fact that she could move her fingers at all testified that Maomao had done well. Chu's injuries were so severe that for a while she wasn't required to do any work. She was supposed to come to the medical office for physical rehab, but now she is downright living here. "Yes, of course, is this the one you want? If your back itches, we have some salve that can help," the quack doctor said, handing Chu a stick of the perfect length. "Ooh, you know, that might not be a bad idea. Oh, and isn't it almost snack time?" "It certainly is. Today I've got sweet potatoes, steamed and mixed with honey and then roasted. And I added some goat's milk to round out the flavor." The quack doctor had become quite the chef, for what it was worth. This was one reason that Chu had made herself such a regular presence in the office. It was interesting to note that the quack's ability to mix medicines hadn't improved in the least. "Why, my dear quack, you've gotten even better than before. This dish is going to cause a revolution in Li's potato cooking world," Chu said, working her way assiduously through the pile of potato on her plate. Her left hand proved more than enough to enable her to eat. "Miss Chu, if you'd be so kind as to leave some for the rest of us. I'm going to go call the others," Maomao said. "Yes, of course," Chu replied around a mouthful of food. It hardly made her seem trustworthy. Maomao transferred what was left of the snack onto another plate. The quack was preparing some tea with an unusually strong smell. Maomao suspected the tea was made from leaves from the central region. He would finally have some decent tea after spending so long boiling dandelion roots. "Looks like things have gotten much more stable," Maomao remarked. They were also feeling more comfortable with the office's supply of medicine. There were still some food shortages and other sources of unrest, but they had won some leeway. "Oh, by the way, we should be able to go back to the royal capital soon," Chu drawled. "What?" Maomao asked. "I forgot to mention." "Tee-hee. My husband asked me to tell you all, Miss Maomao." "My bad." Chu knocked herself on her forehead with a knuckle on her left hand. She winked and stuck out her tongue. Maomao found the gesture oddly aggravating. "Is Master Jinshi going back as well?" Maomao asked. "He sure is. It would be tough for him to stick around here much longer, and the succession is pretty well sorted out. For formal purposes, everyone is going to close ranks around Shikyo. Will that work?" To be quite honest, Maomao was uneasy. Certainly, Shikyo had a talent for swiping the best moments out from under people's noses, and he had that hero quality. He was much more charismatic than his second and third brothers, but he had spent years wandering at his leisure. His martial prowess and an information network gained as a Byaroshi would be assets. Still, it seemed like he lacked a good deal. Are you sure he won't have, as the saying goes, the head of a dragon and the tail of a snake? His resemblance to Jyakuo would probably win him a good deal of support at first. As the shine wore off, however, no one could tell how people would ultimately react to him. "Even a slithery snake must do what he needs to do," Chu intoned. "We need Shikyo to be the hero of the western capital, and that's what he is going to have to be." A hero, huh? Thinking about it, Maomao realized that perhaps the reason Jyakuo had given Shikyo alone among his sons a political education was that Jyakuo saw the heroic image he had so idealized in Shikyo. He had wanted to pass his position on to his son. His son was from the start what Jyakuo had labored and aspired to be. Shikyo is a lot of things, but he is not stupid. He was educated all along to be the leader here in the West, and running a Byaroshi agency certainly gives you some experience in managing people. You don't think he's too unserious, too soft? Shikyo's personality was at odds with his name. He might act like a villain, but he had a soft side. That's a fair question. That's why we need to make sure everything around him is solid. But what if the people around him don't trust him? Maomao asked. Chu only grinned and sipped her tea. I think Fei Long will have no trouble being there for his elder brother. And they've got Mr. Rikusen too. What's more, you might not expect it, but Shikyo is rather popular with his uncles. His uncles? Didn't he fight with the one that's his own age? The more you fight, the closer you are. If the second or third son had taken the leadership, I think someone ambitious might have tried to overthrow them. Perhaps Uncle Yoda or someone like him. That is how it went among a group of men who all seemed like a lot of trouble. Also, Vice Minister Lu will be staying for a while to help clean things up, Chu added. You mean that man from the Board of Rites? What good would it do to leave someone in charge of religious observances here? Vice Minister Lu has served in many positions and many offices. A generous way to put it is that he is very versatile. The less generous way is that he is a jack of all trades but a master of none. Still, he can do just about anything, so I am sure he will be able to handle things here. That makes him sound a lot like Lahan's brother. Whatever, Maomao could finally relax a little. We can go back. She had been starting to worry she would end up buried out here in the west. She heaved a sigh of relief. I think Mr. Lihaku already knows. Lahan's brother probably doesn't. Make sure you tell him all right. There will be lots to prepare. Sure thing, Maomao replied. Lahan's brother was in the fields he'd made by tearing up the main house's garden. He'd planted the wheat that he'd brought back at risk of his life during the insect swarm. Maomao left the medical office to go find Lahan's brother. She found him walking in the fields treading the wheat, she presumed. Lahan's bee, she was just calling out to him when she spotted two children at the edge of her vision. Who should it be but Gyokujin and Zairohong? Is Gyokujin giving her a hard time again? Maomao had thought maybe the travels of the road had taught him a few lessons, but maybe not. Why does he think I rescued him? Maomao had become quite partial to Zairohong, so she had every intention of dropping a knuckle on the spoiled bully's head, but something was off. Gyokujin was indeed strutting around about something, but Zairohong only looked at him with lidded eyes. Maomao thought the expression looked familiar. Hey, are you listening to me? Gyokujin demanded, grabbing Zairohong by the collar. At that exact moment there was a sturdy whack. It was Zairohong's open palm which had made contact with Gyokujin's cheek. Gyokujin was so startled that he lost his balance and fell square on his behind. Gyokujin, clearly shaken, touched his reddened cheek. WHWH, what do you think you're doing? Are you not afraid of me? You know I can chase the likes of you right out of the western capital. No, I'm not afraid, Zairohong said and looked down at him, still unfazed. Do you know who my father is? He's the ruler of the western capital, you know. So what if Uncle Shikko rules the western capital? Go ahead and tell on me. He won't get rid of me over this. You should know that better than anyone, Gyokujin. Well, I'm gonna be leader next after my dad. Then I'll kick you out myself. Heh heh. The otherwise expressionless Zairohong suddenly laughed. What's so funny? Oh, I just thought that if the likes of you were going to be leader here, maybe I'd go to the imperial capital and try to aim a little higher. What can you do? You're just a little shrimp who hides behind his daddy all the time. A shrimp who runs away leaking snot from his nose. Then, as if nothing had happened, Zairohong simply walked away. SNN. Brought to tears by a girl even younger than he was, Gyokujin was left with nothing to do but sit there on the ground, leaking snot and flailing angrily. I feel someone watching me, Maomao thought. She turned around slowly to find Lahan's brother standing there. What did you teach that girl? He asked, giving Maomao his most scathing look. Me, nothing. That wasn't nothing. Did you see her expression? She looked exactly like you. Ah, she was a sweeter, more demure child when I knew her. You've got it all wrong. No matter how Maomao struggled to convince him, however, Lahan's brother would not believe her. She spent so much time and energy on the subject, in fact, that she forgot the very important thing she had come to tell him. Epilogue. The salt breeze felt wonderful. Maomao savoured the wind of the sea as she walked across the deck of the ship. They'd left Isay province behind and were underway on a pleasant sea voyage. The vessel they were on reminded her of the ones they had taken on the way here, though it was slightly and subtly different in shape. Once again, they had 3 large vessels, with some merchant ships accompanying them. Things had changed dramatically in the western capital over the past several months. There had been a time when people had muttered that the emperor's younger brother had assassinated Gyokujin in order to take over the city. However, with Gyokujin's eldest son Shikyo now involved in the local politics, impressions had changed. Despite all the chatter about Shikyo's delinquency, people seemed to regard him well enough. The fact that he was the spitting image of his father seemed to account for the lion's share of his popularity. But perhaps there was another factor. The heroic quality that had been a performance for Gyokuro felt perfectly natural coming from Shikyo. There were still potential problems with provisions. But Jinshi, the emperor's younger brother, couldn't stay in the area forever, so it was decided that he would go home. Vice Minister Liu would have his hands full, no doubt, but hopefully he would do the best he could. Frankly, he might find it easier to work with Jinshi back in the central region. Those who had begrudged supplies to the west would find they could no longer refuse with His Majesty's brother close at hand. It wasn't the sort of thing the imperial family would normally get involved in, but Maomao could easily imagine Jinshi doing just that. I can't believe it's been almost a whole year since we got here. She wondered how much the imperial city had changed. She hoped everyone she knew there was doing well. I forgot to buy souvenirs, but they won't be expecting any by now, will they? She hadn't had time for such things. Well, she had one souvenir, the ambergris. She was sure glad to at least have something to give the cantankerous old madam. Otherwise, no excuse in the world would have spared her from the old lady's discipline. Much as Maomao would have liked to finally relax, the ship home hosted certain people around whom she definitely could not do that. Miss Chu. Yes. What is it, Miss Maomao? Chu was eating raisins still on the vine, as if remembering the western capital. She easily plucked them out of the bunch with her left hand and popped them into her mouth. What is that old fart doing here? Maomao asked, sending a glower toward the old fart that is, the freak strategist who was at the bow. He's here for the same reason you are, Miss Maomao, to go home from the western capital, Chu drawled. He was looking quite chipper at first, but the moment the ship got underway, well, he didn't even make it to the head, the poor thing. He just emptied the contents of his stomach right into the sweet sea breeze. Spare me the details, I can guess. The sick glittered with sea spray. Maomao started to feel bad for the aide nearby. There was a younger person there too, with a bucket. Junji, that was his name, he'd helped look after Maomao in the western capital. Master Lakan was supposed to be on another ship, but oh, the tantrum he threw. This time I'm going to go with Maomao. Wah wah. He looked ready to get some gunpowder involved if we weren't careful, and well, you've got to know when to fold them. He will be lying low as long as we are sailing, so I think you should be just fine. Where was he going to get this gunpowder? Maomao grumbled. She did not want anyone causing an explosion on any ship she was aboard. Then she said, I didn't know Junji was going to be with us too. So young and already going abroad to work in order to earn money to support his family. How very filial of him. Yes, indeed. He was more surprised than anyone to find out that his name was on the list of passengers heading back to the capital. Perhaps we can have him stick with Master Lakan for a while. Our dear strategist does seem to get along better with kids. So much for certain person number 1 around whom Maomao could not relax. As for certain person number 2, I've finished organizing the cargo. What would you like me to do next? There was a humble young man with baggage in both hands. On his bare skin were red splotches that appeared to be burned scars. Maomao glowered at him. Oh, you have? Then maybe you could swab in front of our cabins, said Chu. Master Lakan didn't quite make it to the deck before he let loose, and it's not a pretty sight down there. Miss Maomao's and my rooms could each use a touch-up. Be thorough now. Yes, ma'am. When I'm finished, may I pay a visit to the Moon Prince? The young man whose name was Hulan bowed politely. Whatever are you talking about? There's plenty more work for you to do after that. The moment you're done by the cabins, you'll need to start swabbing the deck. Chu pointed to the freak strategist who was still actively vomiting. Why is this guy here? Maomao asked with undisguised displeasure. This guy is so terribly harsh. Please feel free to simply call me Hulan. The young man was still grinning, the same as he always did. Maomao had found herself fleeing all over Ise province because she treated Shikyo after he was shot with a poisoned dart, but it was Zyrohong who had brought her to the injured man. And it was Hulan who had urged Zyrohong on. Hulan was the one who had sought to subdue Shikyo because of a succession dispute, and she had dragged Maomao into it too. She had every intention of giving him a knuckle sandwich when they next met, but somehow, seeing him covered from head to toe in burns, she didn't quite have the heart. Miss Maomao, Miss Chu, I don't trust myself to stay calm around him. Oh, won't you let it pass this time? Chu grinned as wide as Hulan and pointedly held up her crippled right hand. She had been most grievously hurt in their adventure, and if she urged temperance, there wasn't much Maomao could say. As you see, there's nowhere left for me in the western capital. More importantly, the duty I must execute has changed, Hulan said. Maomao looked at him, puzzled. I can see why they wouldn't want you in the western capital, but what's this about your duty? Hulan blushed slightly and looked down. My duty now is to offer up my body for the sake of the master I ought to serve. Sorry, I don't follow. Maomao was feeling sicker by the minute. Her expression somewhat resembled the one that abacus glasses Lahan occasionally levelled at Jinchi. I know you don't much care for me, Lady Maomao, but I ask you to trust me. I've accompanied this voyage in order to do my duty to the utmost. I offer and will offer up this body of mine for the sake of the Moon Prince at any moment he may ask, for it is by his grace that I live. That's one weird zealot. Maomao looked at Chu unimpressed. Is it too late to trade him for Xiaohong? The thought crossed my mind, but unfortunately she's underage, so it was a no-go. I couldn't get Miss Yinxing to agree. Well, at least she tried. Xiaohong, you are most discerning. I've long thought that girl could be very useful indeed. And why did you get this useful girl wrapped up in your plot? Maomao asked. Well, when I heard she was even more suitable than I was, how could I not want to meddle a bit? I never dreamed she would bring you of all people, Lady Maomao. I never meant for you to get involved. It's true, I swear it, you must believe me. Hulan made it all sound unaccountably frivolous. He was starting to look like something was wrong with his thinking. Oh, so that's the story. Chu seemed oddly prepared to take what he said at face value. Maomao wasn't sure what Chu was taking from what Hulan said, but she had another question. All right, Master Hulan, tell me. Could it be that you were testing me the entire time I was in the western capital? It was Hulan who had brought her the cases of food poisoning at the distillery, as well as the sick VIP. Testing is such an unpleasant word. I simply brought you along wondering if you might be able to solve those problems, Lady Maomao. That includes the food poisoning at the distillery. She wanted to be sure. Hulan didn't answer, but only smiled. Oh, the distillery, I heard things were tough after that, Chu said, neatly changing the subject. Maomao understood her point. Even if she wanted to question Hulan further, she shouldn't delve too deeply into the subject. Chu continued, a test sip is fine, but they had drunk all of their best wine. They simply drank too much until they didn't have enough to fulfill their orders, so they mixed in watered-down inferior wine. Inferior wine? Maomao asked. This story was beginning to sound familiar. That's right. This happened right around the time there was all the commotion about their wine. They thought they had gotten away with it, but then the food poisoning occurred and everything was revealed. As if on cue, Chu and Hulan both grinned broadly. The two of them looked nothing alike, yet their smiles were identical. He's not hopeless, you see, but he's not very subtle. He has to learn somehow. So now he's working for you, Miss Chu. You got it, and I'm going to work him hard. Feel free to have him do whatever menial tasks you want, Miss Maomao. I look forward to working with you, Hulan said, sounding strangely upbeat for someone who had been exiled from his home. Maomao let out a long sigh and turned away. She left Hulan to ponder what to do about the freak strategist. The contents of his stomach were currently forming a rainbow in the sky. Maomao was sick of looking at either of them. She turned her mind to considering where else she could be at that moment. She spotted a lookout's platform high up one of the masts. Excuse me, could I go up there? She asked a nearby sailor. What would you do up there? It would be dangerous for you, miss. I was just curious. Curious, do all you central types like high places? He gave her a dubious look, but she didn't much care. If he'd pressed the point, she might have thought better of the idea. However, the sailor brought her a rope. Here, a lifeline. It is dangerous, so make sure you tie it tight around yourself. Oh, thank you very much. She was actually surprised how readily the man went along with her request. She tied the rope around her waist and started working her way upward. She arrived at the lookout, which was about halfway up the mast. She was about to climb onto the platform when she realized someone had beaten her to it. What are you doing here, Maomao? He asked. I could ask you the very same question, Master Jinchi. There was Jinchi sitting on the lookout's platform. Me, I was trying to get away from someone rather troublesome. Master Basin. No, that wouldn't make sense, is it, Master Hulan? Jinchi's expression darkened. Bingo, and what brings you up here? He asked. It's just such a lovely day that I wanted to be outside, but I've been trying to find somewhere the freak strategist isn't vomiting. In other words, they were both there for roughly the same reason. Anyway, have a seat, it's a bit cramped. Live with it. Maomao sat down, effectively shoulder to shoulder with Jinchi. What else could she do? It was cramped. Maybe they'd only let her up here because someone else had done it first. We're finally going home, Jinchi mused. It's been a most circuitous route, Maomao said. Don't say that. Not when I am finally in a decent mood. Jinchi looked at the sky, which was blue with puffy white clouds. It was a picture of peace, as if nothing bad could possibly happen. Things are going to be busy when we get back to the capital, Maomao said. That is for certain. I am sure work has been piling up there. Supporting a distant land like Isei province from the royal capital isn't going to be easy. Nonetheless, Jinchi's expression conveyed that it would have to be done. The profile of his face was nearly perfect, marked only by a single stroke, a single scar. It would probably never fade. Maomao recalled that Jinchi seemed oddly fond of it. It makes me think of everything that happened with the Shi clan. It must have reminded Jinchi each time he looked in a mirror or touched his cheek. Maomao knew very well that this man, Jinchi, felt his responsibilities keenly. He didn't need her to remind him that there would be lots of work to do when they got home.